Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back. So, everything you need and want to know about pellet gun and BB gun CO2 gas. And of course, we have different forms of this as well. So, let's get started with our first bottle type. Now, this is a Crossman bottle. It's been around since the Stone Age. And they didn't always make it with this nice of a top on it. It used to be what looked like almost like a bottle cap that you would peel off with a bottle opener type of thing. They were pretty ugly, pretty scary looking to even put into a modern day gun. However, they did use them for many, many years until they refined their process and got into this style. And this has a really nice ridge on it. It actually gives a little bit more diameter to the tip of the bottle. Now, Crossman is notorious for having fairly thick piercing tops on them. Okay, so some guns will take a little bit more pressure to pierce through that metal top than others in order to ignite the gas into your gun. Okay, however, these things run in 12 gram size, no matter what the brand, between 900 to 1000 psi, give or take. We have seen them running as low as 860s, depending on the brand and so on. Okay. Now, another brand out there is Umarex. Now, these guys have been around for quite a while. They do a very cool looking bottle. However, what they don't have is that outer ridge. It's just a very small area in here. Now, these are, well, now that I've got one up front and personal in my face, I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at my differences between the two bottles. And though things kind of look the same, they really aren't in total. If you take a good close look at that, this is the Umarex here, and this is our Crossman. The diameter here is very much smaller in the middle, and without having that outer lip around the edge, because it looks like somebody peeled it off with a lathe, okay, where they cut into it. That is going to be a bit of a problem with a lot of different air guns, because what's going to happen is when this goes in, there's a lot of force holding that power lead into your gun, because it's also got to hold back pressure, and the pressure has to stay, and it has to seal against the seal, and so on, right? So a lot of pressure there. So this is actually going to cause a cut-in issue on a lot of different air gun seals in different guns, okay? And I see that being a very high probability of happening, whereas Crossman has the much larger outer ring. It hasn't been machined off, and the whole outer diameter is actually much bigger, even to the flat face, where this one with the cutout is going to allow it to go in and actually penetrate into your seal deeper. And because of the size of the hole inside the middle of your seal, because it has to have that piercing cap assembly there, unless you have a very, very small hole in that seal so that it is just barely a cutout around the piercing pin, this is definitely going to be a problem bottle. The other problem that you're going to run into is if you use this gas in your gun, and then say later on you run out of this gas and all that's available is Crossman to you, the Crossman one might actually end up leaking, because now you've got a larger concave, well, not larger per se, but you'd have a deeper concave that's narrower into that seal, and this powerlet is not going to be able to go in there properly, and it's going to push the outer edges that actually don't exist with this one. This one's going to have that, and it's likely not going to seal into your gun properly, and you're going to think that your gun has a problem. It's not that your gun has a problem, it's this powerlet has a problem, because this one was used previous and made a different type of impression into the seal. So this is something you got to be very aware of, especially when you're trying different brands. I can't remember the one brand I tried out years ago, but they were primarily used in airsoft guns, but very compatible with all CO2 air pistols and, of course, air rifles and so on. And so we did try them out, and they had a very large, actually much larger even than Crossman, but flat across. And so some guns would leak because there wasn't enough room. I mean, by the time you got the powerlet in there, it's like it couldn't get into the seal area because the ring that holds the seal back, right, was not a correct diameter for that particular headpiece on the powerlet. so it couldn't pierce properly. So, and it would pierce very easily too, which as soon as you started to pierce it, you'd want to crank it, right, to stop that gas leak. You couldn't stop the leak. So this became a problem in a lot of guns. Now, those particular cartridges actually did work really well in the QB78, QB79s. Worked very well, actually, in the Crosman 160s, which is the QB78 is basically a replica of the 160 from Crosman. And so it wouldn't be a problem, though, because your bottles go in this way in a QB. One goes towards the butt, one goes towards the muzzle, and you just have a piercing cap here that's metal that just pierced the bottle, and there was no seal to worry about because the seal was on the outside of the cap, right? Because these were like a bulk fill style gun, right? So this one here went into the valve insert, so when you shot the first shot, it would pierce the bottle that way, and then all the gas empties into the valve, empties into the tube, because they're sitting like this, literally that close. They are touching each other back to back inside the gun. So any surrounding empty area is where all that gas from the two bottles empties to, and so you get X amount of shots for every two bottles. Okay, now I've gotten well over 200 shots out of my QB78 177 cal rifle. I have had the QB78 in 22 caliber, and usually you got about 65 to 70 really good shots, and then it would go, you know, because I mean you're trying to fire a 22 out of there. I mean it takes a lot more gas to do that, so you do have a lot less shot count in the 22 caliber. And even on the 177, though I get very high shot count, it's also because I have a non-PAL version. The 177 was not always available to us. It was originally just a PAL gun, but since Beeman is now producing the QB78s as well as the original company that came out with the QB78s, and of course, well, the Crosman 160 hasn't been produced in years, but anyways, so the availability to get a 177 QB78 is now there when you buy the Beeman QB78 version in 177, and they are also doing the 22 cal version as well. So anyways, and so far my valve is holding up great in my 177. Mind you, I've only put a little over 200 shots through it, so time will tell when I get upwards to 1,000 shots if I have any issues. But anyways, so different powerlets can react differently. So when you're looking at different powerlets online to try something out because it's cheaper, Umarex actually is a little bit cheaper than the Crosman ones by a couple of bucks, especially when you're buying in bulks of like 25s or 15s or 40 packs. You're actually going to save a couple of dollars getting Umarex over Crosman. And literally it's only a couple of dollars. It's under $5 difference for being cheaper. However, a lot of us do have to put up with what is only readily available. Now, I have the option to go to a couple of places in North Bay that will sell me both types of these, and they don't carry any other brands. We actually don't have anyone carrying the Daisy brand CO2 in North Bay at all. Never have, actually, that I'm aware of. And we do have a place called Ecotrex, which is a really cool place. They do sell basically some beginner grade air guns, nothing really special. They're cheaper guns. They have a couple, like they got the Tangifold or Tangifold, whatever you call it, pistol, a couple others, but their main air rifles are not very expensive guns, okay, overall. So, but they do carry ammo from Crosman, RWS, and I do believe they also carry just the Crosman CO2. Now, the Daisy powerlets are definitely a very big thing, no. Do not go near them. They are very much worse than the Umarex, because as you see, the Umarex has that bevel cut, and so our tip is much more narrower. Well, Daisy's kind of the same thing, but it's also slightly more protruded out this way more too, so it's deeper that way. Still being the exact same length of bottle in the end. It's just the way they decide to do their design. And but because of that, they are just as bad, if not worse, than the Umarex. So I actually ordered a case of Umarex ones before I even got this one. And I got this one with one of my new guns. I bought a Humerex MCP, UX MCP. Actually, I picked up two of them, one for me, one for the wife. And they each came with two of these Humerex ones. Now, these are fine to run in your QB78s. It's not going to be an issue. And if you have any gun actually that has hammer piercing and no seal, where it fills the tube, then you'd be able to use the Humerex and not have issues because there's no seal to worry about. So I won't even use this on my Humerex gun that it came with, because, you know, it does have a small seal as it is on the Humerex, so there's not a lot of room there. But you can run the Crossman ones, and the Crossman ones actually work better because they fill up that diameter just perfect with still just enough room left around that ring that holds the seal in place, that the Crossman one is actually going to create longer longevity for that seal. The other important thing when it comes to pellet guns and BB guns running CO2 gas is that you put a couple of drops of oil either directly to the seal if you can get at it easily, or to the top of the powerlet and insert the powerlet into the gun. Now every gun's going to insert differently, okay, but you got to make sure that a couple of drops goes on here and actually hits that end seal where it's going to seal against, because it's going to help lubricate the seal, and any excess oil is actually going to go directly into the valve and lubricate things like your valve stem seal, okay, and your other seals that may be inside your valve. And it doesn't take very much oil, believe me, to lubricate those seals. However, you should be actually doing this about every second or third CO2 bottle. Now, I have also been asked on my channel about guns, about what guns you can leave gas in, what you can't. There's so many air guns out there. I can't give you all the answers except for answers to guns that I've personally owned or have used myself. Then I can tell you yes or no. So the only way you find out is to actually ask me about a particular gun. Now, I can do some research to find out, but I would say right now that the majority of Berettas, Humerex, and Walther guns, you do not leave CO2 in them long term, and the same with your Sig Sawyers. Now, it's not about so much the seal issue. That's only part of it. Those things have much thinner, weaker seals than other air guns. However, that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies is the valve designs are not designed to withstand the CO2 pressure on long-term storage. Okay? Shooting a couple of rounds through your gun, shooting 20 bottles through your gun in a day does not hurt your valve. Okay? It's when you still have a lot of gas left in this valve, and that means there's still a lot of pressure into it, okay, then you are asking for trouble to happen. I actually have had 2 PPKs, Walther PPKs, explode the valves on me because I left gas in them, right? Hey, how else are you going to find out if it's going to take it or not, right? And there's no fixing the valve once it explodes, because it strips the threads right out of the sucker, so you can't screw it back together. We tried. Does not work. You got to spend money on a new valve. Now, a replacement valve for the Walther PPK, somewhere around probably 8 years ago, was about $22, so I don't know what they cost now. And I have actually talked to my wife, although she has not given me the go-ahead to do this yet, but I did mention it to her today when we were shooting some videos, that I would like to actually probably get a couple of PPKs. Again, it's been a lot of years since we've had them, and they are great little shooters. Now, the reason for that is because I bought this beast, and this has got blowback on it, and it's very, very authoritative, okay? It's hard to hit the target because it has such a really wicked kick. It's a very heavy gun. And the PPK is a lot lighter. It's got a metal slide too. You can get it either in regular metal or nickel. I would like to get a nickel and a black one, and this way, you know, she can have the black, I'll have the nickel, or vice versa. Or maybe we'll just get two nickels or 2 blacks. Who knows? Depends on what we want to do. But they are fun BB guns, and you can get about 130 rounds per bottle out of one of those suckers. They're just great on gas. Even this thing I found today was extremely good on gas, which we'll talk about when I do the review on this thing. Anyways, so another kind of gas we have are air source cylinders. Now, this is the JT 90 gram. You can also get the 88 grams as well. There's many companies that produce this stuff. Crossman is one of the ones that have been around since the Stone Age again with air source. These are widely used in a lot of paintball guns, more so than anything, but there are a lot of other guns out now that use this, including my Sig Sauer MPX. Now that thing's got a pretty beefy, heavy-duty valve, but even Sig tells you do not leave the gas in on long term because it can damage the seals and the valve. So they're at least telling us up front, don't leave gas in their gun on long-term storage because things could go bad, okay? Now, I looked at a Crossman 88 gram to just compare online as far as the facings go and that, and they're very much the same. So I don't see any issues here at all with the front piece going to be a problem, whether you use this brand or the Crossman. Definitely not those two in any of your guns that use these things. One thing I did notice, though, is the thread count or thread depth. You have more threads on this bottle than you do have available on the Crossman. Now, some guns are going to require more threading in than others, right? Now, the Sig Sauer is not a problem. Actually, let me just grab my Sig Sauer for you. The Sig will run the Crossman or these without any issues. Now, I do have a bottle sitting in here, but it's not ignited. I can just take this right out, and as you can see, it's not ignited, okay? Now, when you put this thing in, you start threading it in place. It's pretty darn close there. I have just enough room to actually twist that in and lock it down secure, okay? And no problem. It will ignite the bottle, nothing will leak. Now, when you look at the seal itself, it's actually a pretty beefy seal that's in this sucker, which is actually a good thing. You want to have a beefy seal for sure. But, again, they say don't leave CO2 gas. They say shoot the whole bottle. Now, this gun gets about 250 shots out of a 88 or 90 gram. Now I'm running the 90s. I got 250 shots. I probably could have had a few more shots left over. However, the one thing you don't want to do with this gun is run it dry of gas, especially if you're not planning on putting another bottle in on the same day. Okay, so I would probably just run an entire bottle through this, and that's my shooting fun for the day. I have lots of guns. I want to shoot other guns than just this, right? And there is no way I personally would be planning to shoot even 2 bottles of this stuff in one day. I mean, this stuff's expensive. 2 bottles of this is like $20. That's a lot of money. So that's like 500 rounds of ammo. So the cost of 500 rounds of ammo plus 2 of these for a day of shooting, still a lot cheaper than actual real firearms for bullets. However, that's still going to be costly. They do have adapters out now, actually, where you can screw into an air source type threaded system, and you can either use 1 12-gram bottle of CO2 or 2. And I'm thinking I might pick up both adapters when they both become back in stock again, and I want to see what kind of shot count I'm going to get on the 12-gram versus going with the 2 bottles, okay? And I think that's a good way to actually do some testing also for you guys to let you know, hey, which one is actually the better one to go with. Now, granted, 12 grams to 90 grams, if you do the math, so if we got 90 and we divide that by 12, that's like 7.5. So we should get probably 70 shots, give or take, maybe 60. I don't know. I'd have to figure out how to do the exact math on that one. But just putting, it goes in that way. Let me try that again. 90. See if I did it right. 90 divided by 12. Yeah, that's 7.5. So at 12 grams of gas, 12 goes into 97.5 times 250. So if we went 250, divide that by maybe 12, 20 shots, I guess, for 12 grams. Not a lot of shots. That's rough guess. I don't know if I'm even doing the math right on that. But 250 shots on 90. So there you go. But this thing isn't really a massive gas hog, but it is a bit of a gas hog, which is another reason why I'd like to get away from these air source bottles and go into those adapters, because I would rather just, pop in a 12 or maybe two 12s on the adapter that goes into the gun and, just shoot off 50 rounds, put the gun away, go grab another gun, and I'm done shooting for the day. And it saves me a boatload of money on CO2 gas, where this could be the expensive. Now, there is a kit you can also buy for this gun too, to go HPA with it, etc. There are other options out there to not have to use CO2 gas in this gun. But even with the air source bottles, you are probably going to have to take a very good look inspection at the tip. And if it looks like this, you should be fine, because it's got a big enough area in here. And when you look at the center punched out hole on the seal on the SIG Sawyer, that is plenty of room, and you're not screwing that thing in very tight to the SIG. But even with these, every second or third bottle, put a couple drops on. Now, the advantage of the SIG is the way it's made. You can just put the muzzle to the ground, put a couple drops directly on the seal, and then screw this in. Okay, let it sit for a couple seconds on the seal so that some of the oil can actually get through the piercing hole. But either way, you're going to be lubing that seal, and you need to have that seal lubricated. It keeps the seal pliable and makes it also easy to get in and out as well, which is another benefit to actually oiling those seals. So whether it's air source stuff or this stuff, every couple of bottles, re-oil that seal. Other than that, as far as CO2 gas goes, there's nothing else to really get into telling you about, other than to be very careful, especially with your 12-gram bottles, the kind of tip that it has on it. Try and always get something that's relatively the same as the Crosman one. Okay, there are other companies that make CO2 gas that look identical to the Crosman one in every way. Okay, they are the best for any gun I've ever used them in, and I've used Crosman CO2s in many Walther guns, Umarex, Beretta stuff. I've used them in many guns. I have a friend who has actually, he passed away a while back. He was getting up there in his years. He actually taught me a lot about air gun repair years back. And he always used Crosman, even in Smith & Wesson guns that he owned, Daisy guns, and any other guns that he's owned or even worked on. He's always used the Crosman bottles, and seals last longer with these bottles, okay? But also, part of that is, the customer shouldn't be, or the person should not be, reefing them in really tight either, because that'll destroy your seal no matter what you do. So that's another thing to discuss too. Now, the Daisy Winchester is a prefixed pressure load system when it comes to its CO2. Okay, so when you pop that bottle in there, this is prefixed. They have their own tension. I have found no way that I can see where this would be adjustable in any way, so you can't adjust the tension. And it does pierce the bottle complete, nice pure hole. Today we also took out, my wife took out her MCP gun. Now I want to show you that too. And I know the video is getting long, but we need this information, okay? Now the NCP, it uses the Pellet as well, and of course this is a Umarex gun, and you twist it in, okay? Now you're going to twist until it gets nice and tight, and then you're going to give it another twist, and it's going to ignite, and then just a little snug more. That is all you need, and it'll pierce the bottle just fine. And my wife will tell you when she gets the shot count change difference with warm weather shooting, and so will I, of course, on my channel. Let you know how many shots we get out of this. I still haven't fired mine. I was playing with hers. I figured, well, hey, here, you can have my gun, I'll take yours. So I haven't actually run a CO2 through this gun at all yet. But that'll be probably in the next day or two. But heck of a nice gun though. Really like these things. They're fun. But you do have to be mindful. Do not leave gas in this long term, or you are going to wreck stuff. Okay? And a lot of guns are like that. But anyhow, if you have any questions, comments, you know where to leave the comments, right? But if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. I'll do the best I can to answer them, and we'll just keep going from there. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Got a lot of good information out of it, and we will catch you on the next one. Ciao.